From the City of Angels, you are listening to the James Salazar Media Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the state of the world. So let me strike the music, and I'll meet you on the other side.
Engage.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Say hello to my little friend.
No, I am the Father.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
And welcome to the James Salazar Media Podcast, where you get your dose of pop culture, politics, and futurism. I am the formerly mentioned James Salazar, aka the media. So where do I start? My friends, the world has changed. Because of our president, the world can no longer trust America to act in the defense of its allies. Now, we're still going to be friends with Europe, but it will never trust us in this capacity again. The world that depended upon America to fight its battles is gone. Europe is going to rearm itself, reinvest in natural energies, because the science of green technologies is still lacking, and we, in much of the world, still needs oil or natural gas. They're going to expand their military budgets. We just seen right now that Germany, it will expand its military budget by billions, and every nation state around them will do the same, are going to do the same. Probably the next version of the UN will have more teeth and less dependence on American influence. Look, we are as moral as our leaders, and every country rearming itself in the face of the United States abandoning its allies. We can only hope that these countries who take it upon themselves to defend themselves will stay moral to its citizens and its neighbors. You see, what made World War I and World War II world wars is that each country had a military to defend it. So we're going to see a new arms race with these smaller countries. And we're going to see these traditional countries like Germany, Great Britain, France, Spain. They will have to increase their military budget. And of course, they will seek to have nuclear power. The world was fine just having China and Russia and United States having the majority of the nuclear weapons ready to strike a blow for freedom or oppression, which would never happen. But now that every state is going to have to defend itself, it can no longer rely on American strength to be used in their favor. And this is what Joe Biden has taught the world. That, no, just because we are the strongest military in human history, doesn't mean we're going to use it for you, even though we said we would. If America is no longer going to be the police of the world, then everybody's going to have to police themselves and defend themselves. I don't know if World War III will happen. I'm not saying it is. But it's most likely going to happen with every country arming itself. That the threat of the United States putting rogue countries in check, there is no confidence in that from Europe and the East. You see, we are as moral as our leaders. And this new arming of Europe, which will happen, it's unavoidable. Age-old conflicts, prejudices, and a lack of resources could put Europe in a constant state of conflict with each other. See, and when it comes to the UN, there's two possibilities. A more divided Europe with national pride for your country, or a more unified Europe with a rebuilding of the UN with a military power that could rival, in a couple of years, the United States of America. This could be a problem for America because progressive ideas concerning global warming and progressive politics. I could very much see a world where UN forces countries under military threat to be more progressive, to fight global warming the way they think it should be fought. You know, free societies have flaws, and Americans, we accept those flaws as necessary evil for the higher good, freedom. But Europe does not agree with that sentiment. They believe people should be controlled with little freedoms and more entitlements to soften that blow. This might cause a challenge for the United States in years. Never underestimate good doers. Is it good doers? Do-gooders need to control things. Just remember, everyone is a hero of their own story. There's a saying by C.S. Lewis. Tyranny done for your own good can be the most oppressive for those who torment you for your own good. Do so without cease and with the approval of their conscience. So, my friends, the world has changed. And you can mark this time in history where Vladimir Putin overextended his hand and the abandoning of allies by the United States of America that will change the face of Europe for the next 100 years. We will see nations arm themselves, and unless they unify under the EU, we can have skirmishes and potential World War III. Or they can unify under the EU and be a global empire of aligned European countries. They will act unilaterally in their own interests and not ask America for anything. But in all reality, this was impossible to maintain. Somebody was going to do what Putin has done. The only way where America keeps the world safe is if it took over the world and subjugated everybody unto the American Constitution, which is subjugating governments, not people. Giving power to the people and lessening the power of governments. This is the only way the United States can be the police of the world if every state in the world was united under the United States. Which is not going to happen. But here's a fact, and here's my futurist hat putting on. There will constantly be conflicts until the world unifies under a one world government, under a unified constitution that allows states to be their own and have a central authority that makes sure certain rights and privileges continue to happen. That you limit what the states can do under these laws. Until then, you're going to need borders and people defending those borders to maintain their laws and their identity. And it could happen. I mean, I'm Californian. I'm proud to be Californian, even though with all its flaws. I'm probably never going to leave this place, and people who want to abandon it, that's fine. That's on you. I may want to live in other states. Maybe. But it's not like leaving a country. The American experience, the American experiment, with all its flaws, has worked and is continuing to work. These homogenized states over there in Europe, I mean, white people like to start shit. Not that Hispanics and Africans and Asians don't, but Europe goes to war every 50 years. And it hasn't happened in about, I think, 100 years because of American dominance and power and American... I'll just say this once again. The world is fucking lucky that the most powerful military on human history is the United States. A country that believes its citizens is more important than its government itself. Because if the government was more important in the United States, we would be way more in people's shit, trying to control outcomes. And we know this because at times America has been government first and people second. Luckily for us, that we have a constitution that keeps on pulling us back from that. And we are seeing right now in real time where nations that are not as powerful at us as they were, well, we know what they would do because they're doing it. They're going to try to take other countries. Now, this current war with Putin, because it seems like the Russian people don't want it, is very interesting. You see, if we had to take Ukraine, we would take it in a day. And Russia, who don't have sentiments that U.S. military has, is try to keep collateral damage at its lowest. And it is the fog of war makes it impossible to be 100% correct. Russians don't really care about that. They'll kill children and women as long as the objective is obtained. But we could take Ukraine in a day, the United States, if it chose to, if it wanted to. Russia is having trouble. And this is something I used to say a long time ago, and there's been a lot of sophistry and propaganda for the last 25 years. But the fact of the matter is the United States was, during the Cold War, at Russia at the height of its power, was its advancements were 20 years older than the United States at the height of their power. They were a threat to us back in the Cold War because the amount of numbers of military equipment that they would have to fight us with would probably, at the time, could overwhelm our advancements. But then Europe fell. I mean, the Soviet Union fell. And they stopped spending money on military altogether, about 20 years worth. So now we are 40 years more advanced than Russia. Russia, with Putin, late 90s, starts to get strong again. And people started to say, they're going to be a threat. They're going to be a problem. And I always stood in my mind the American calculation of Russian threat was always military technology behind us. One of our planes could shoot down 10 of their planes, but they would have 20 planes, but they would have like 12 planes to our one, which gives them technically a military advantage. But we're seeing their inability to take a third world nation down. And we're hearing reports that they have a terrible ability to fight at night. They had terrible communication. Ukraine is taking over the Russians' equipment, and they're seeing how obsolete and outdated it is. And just by our support alone, Ukraine has more sophisticated equipment than Russia, being a third or second world country. I'm not sure if it's a third world country. I think it's a second world country. It's not a first world country. And we're finding out Russia has a very delusional leader about its military power. And this is an eye-opening experience to the United States, because the United States sort of wasn't sure how powerful Russia is. And now it's showing its hat and is not anywhere a match for the United States. It shouldn't actually be more. Our allies, some of our allies are more powerful than Russia. We are finding out. And this is a complete embarrassment for Putin. But let me tell you something. Putin needs to take Ukraine. I don't see there is a ceasefire unless his generals and the people act unilaterally over Putin to end this war. But as long as Putin is in charge, he needs to take over Ukraine. He needs to be successful at this. If he's not, it'll be the end of his reign. The military will turn on him. The people already have. The Russian people have a long history of tearing down governments, whether it be communistic or monarchy or a police state. They have no problem doing that. They got a robust history of that. And anybody who says that they weren't emboldened by our current president to take Ukraine is a fool. They weren't emboldened by what happened in Afghanistan. They felt if this was the time, if there's ever a time, this would be it. And so they struck. And China is watching closely. Because if Putin can take Ukraine, which is cheaper than buying it, you know that, people, right? When people say we're going to do all these sanctions, I mean, what is Ukraine worth? Maybe $1 trillion? He's not going to spend that much in a war. He's going to get a 75% discount on Ukraine if he just takes it outright. It doesn't matter how many things you shut down or how you stop their ability to buy things from the world. Guess what? He's going to be fine. And his people will start starving. And then we're going to go, maybe we should pull back on these sanctions because we don't want to kill 100 million Russians by cutting off aid because they're trying to punish their leader. And you watch. Europe will pull back and America will pull back on its sanctions because they don't want to see in the nightly news Russians starving because of an economical embargo. 2-year process, if he ends up with Ukraine and he doesn't care about the outcome of his own people, my friend, that's a good deal for him. His calculations will be right if he is successful. But what he did not expect, 2 things. The heart of the Ukrainians to fight and unify against Russia. Even those Ukrainians who identify as Russians never wanted Russia to invade, and now are unifying under Ukrainian identity, is having the exact opposite effect that Putin wanted. Number 2, Europe's ability to rally and unify for Ukraine was unexpected. They're probably going to get EU membership, and they're probably going to be forced into negotiation because now Australia and Germany and other nations will file suit, are going to arm Ukraine to keep this fight longer than Putin wanted or expected. His people already don't want it. So we're in a critical time right now. And we can't depend. Americans should be ashamed about their president, because we could easily just stop this within 2 days. We could. We have the power to do that. But we're not going to do that because of the current president we have. And guess what? If we did that, it would have no effect on us. It pretty much would have no effect on us. We're the most dominant economy. We're the most dominant military. We're the most dominant culture in the world. Very few things line up like that. Russia ain't going to do shit to us. And they don't have the ability to do shit to us economically or militarily. The only threats America faces is within, by proposing ideas that would screw us. Joe Biden cut the Keystone Pipeline. With our dependence on our own oil and our own resources, he cut that off and said we are going to buy Russian oil, which empowered Russia, and all of Europe did the same. And he thought we were going to let him. Well, he would be right on that, because we buy his oil. When we can produce our own oil. Now Germany realized that they can't be connected to evil doers or evil actors, countries, and they're going to start investing in their own energy and their own military power. And every nation's going to file suits. Everybody's going to stop buying from Russian oil. This will never change. This is the new normal. Russia screwed themselves in this regard, because everybody who was buying from them, except for the U.S. because of our inept president, are cutting their ties with Russian oil. Or they're about to. Within the next 2 years, they will stop buying oil from Russia. It's only economic engine. And unfortunately, it's going to take, well, fortunately, it's going to take a new president of the United States to cut the dependence on oil from Russia. Do you know how stupid this president is? He cut our own production of oil to buy it from a rogue state called Russia, which we empowered to take over Ukraine by buying that oil, when we could have simply produced it ourselves. And in the wake of that decision, hundreds of thousands of jobs were destroyed. You got to be a special kind of stupid to think this president is good. Special kind of stupid. I'm sorry. This president has been wrong in every turn. Every turn with every decision. Barack Obama said it best. Yes, the president of the United States, his right-hand man at the time, Joe Biden, his vice president, what Barack Obama said about him was this: never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to fuck things up. There is no more truer words spoken. This is by a political ally and a friend and someone in his own cabinet. And I am glad he's going down as one of the worst presidents in human history. Fuck that fool. The elections can't come soon enough, and no one should ever listen to a liberal again. Liberal convinced Americans to take out a president who offended everybody but ran the country successfully for an inept fool. All because their feelings were hurt. You need to sit down and shut the fuck up. Only because you have stupid ideas. Granted, Donald Trump was not perfect. He had a lot of flaws, and I do not think we need him this time around. Governor DeSantis, Dan Crenshaw would be perfect as president. They fight back just as hard, but more careful on the words they speak and not as polarizing. Of course, a Republican president will always be polarizing to a certain part of the electorate. But it is what it is. So, my friends, if Putin is not successful, he will be diminished and probably voted out of office or be overthrown. There'll probably be a coup. It doesn't really have to be a coup because he's pretending to be president when he's actually a dictator. So they can just move him out any way they see fit. If he is not a success, even if he is a success, they might move him out. The starvation of the Russian people does affect Russian soldiers and Russian military and oligarchs. I would not be surprised if Putin was assassinated or they just moved him out of office and they just went to the Russian parliament or whatever it is and say, we're going to get him out of office and actually do it. He made a miscalculation and the world's going to make him pay for it. And the campaign is being a complete disaster. You notice everybody stopped talking about the freedom truckers in Canada? Because one of the number one supporters of Russia and China is Justin Trudeau and communism. Now our people are seeing the motivations of why he does things. Simply because he believes people should be controlled. And he's right next to the nation who believes that people should govern themselves. You will see in the next 5 to 10 years a realigning of leaders who value democracy, freedom, and capitalism. Because capitalism is the vehicle that freedom and democracy rides on. Right now, the reason why Ukraine is able to fight Russia back, probably not for long, they're going to be overwhelmed with numbers, is because of capitalism. The free trade and of ideas, of technologies, and economies put Ukraine in a more powerful position. If it was just another police state, and look at Ukraine has a lot of problems, it has a lot of corruption, but it's still capitalistic, and it still believes in democracy, and it sees the importance of freedom, especially now that someone is trying to take theirs. And we're seeing this half-ass controlled capitalism, state-run economy that Russia has, and it's revealing how many years behind the rest of the world it really is. So I said a lot today. I've been interested about Russian and military, American military, and conflicts and what could possibly happen since the age of 12. I'm 49 now. Virtually reading everything every day. I'm not talking out of my ass. At least I don't think I am. But if you disagree with what I'm saying, put in an email form at jamessalazarmedia@gmail.com. You can also type it in one of my accounts on social media. Just type in James Salazar Media. I'm pretty much on everything. My friends, I have a gift for you. It is an ebook called How to Be Great at Everything You Do. That is free. It will be in the link below in the podcast description. Take advantage of that. So, my friends, if the storm of life comes against you, and even Russia, and you find yourself on your knees, be brave like Ukrainians. Stand tall. Take a look at that storm and say what my sensei, Jack Burton, always says. Give me your best shot. Strike the music.